Now available in paperback and e-readers, The Temptation of John Haynes. Given to temptation, pick up this action-packed African-American paranormal romance. Get The Temptation of John Haynes in paperback and e-readers today.
On Monday, I got my copy of Agent Solo number 3 from the Kickstarter that Raymond Leonard launched last year. Now, Raymond Leonard is a very passionate guy about comics, and his passion and his heart show on every page of Agent Solo. And this third issue is an absolutely fantastic continuation of the City Under Siege storyline. Now, the storyline has been going on ever since Agent Solo number 1, and you can get those back issues when he launches his new Kickstarter for Agent Solo number 4 in August of 2022. And you definitely want to pick up those back issues because, again, this third issue is absolutely fantastic and further delves into the mysteries of the origins of Agent Solo as related to the HOSO program and the MechTech bionic technology. Now, this cover really reminds me of a lot of the old Jim Lee covers that I used to pick up back when I was going to Taft High School, and on Saturdays I would get on the bus and go pick up my comics from the local cigar store, and I would see all of those great X-Men issues with the Jim Lee covers, and this cover captures that spirit of those old Jim Lee covers that I used to pick up back in the early 90s. That's the energy I feel from this cover, and it would definitely be right in place with every other 90s comic, such as Jim Lee's X-Men, or Wiles Patricio's Uncanny X-Men, or Rob Liefeld's X-Force at the time. So I could easily see this book fitting in with those classic Marvel comics, and I could also see them fitting in with many of the Image comics that came out later on, like Jim Lee's Wildcats, and it captures that energy and that spirit. Now, Raymond Leonard spared no expense as related to the paper that he put on his comic, and I love this matte paper and its heavy weight because that's going to make sure that this comic is going to be around for a long time, and it could stand up to repeated readings, and you're definitely going to want to look at this one more than once. And I'm glad that he went out with the expense and spent more on giving us higher quality paper in this matte finish. Now, the comic opens with a big splash of Agent Solo facing off against Strikeout, and it's looking like it's getting ready to be a big battle. So I love this splash. It really opens up and takes us into the action and gives us a good shot of things and gives us a little bit of backstory as related to the characters. Now, the characters face off with each other and as related to their battle from earlier in the second issue after Agent Solo took out the Menace Squad, and your Trix has left a lot of bombs in the city. So this leprechaun left a lot of his tricks all over the place, and they are not going to lead to a pot of gold. No, they are going to lead to a whole lot of death. And your Agent Solo is trying to face off against Strikeout so that he can go out here and save the city. Unfortunately, poor Dreads is a loose end, and sadly, poor Dreads suffers a fate that I wish he hadn't had to experience. I wanted to see a little bit more of Dreads in the comic, but sadly, Dreads is now a part of the Book of the Dead in the Diverse Comics universe, and I'm sad to see him go, but that's what happens to loose ends. Possibly, maybe he'll come back because he is a bionic guy, so possibly he might be able to come back in the future. That depends on what Raymond wants to do, but I'd like to see more of Dreads in the future. Now, with Dreads out of the picture, we get a scene where the female who was taken out of the jail in the first issue or the second issue is then going to confront Agent Solo. Now, this page, it had a couple of Photoshop issues as related to shadows, but it doesn't really hurt the whole production overall. but it's just a little problem that was had because that happens with Photoshop sometimes when you're doing coloring. You get a few shadows here and there. Now, that doesn't, again, hinder the story because the story continues to go on, and we now have a confrontation between your Agent Solo and Masquerade and Strikeout, and she wants to see who is going to be the winner because the winner gets, if it depends on who it is. If Agent Solo wins, Chicago is saved, and if your Strikeout wins, it's a one big giant fatality for the Windy City. Now, this leads to a nice big splash that, again, double page. It reminds me a lot of those big Jim Lee splashes that Wolverine would be in against guys like Sabretooth or Omega Red from that classic books. I think it was X-Men 4 to X-Men 7. And that's what it really this one really reminds me of, that those Jim Lee issues where Wolverine was taking on Omega Red. And this is a big fight, and it shows how intense it is. Now, as this is going on, we get some backstory at the labs of the Hoso program, where your General Relic is talking about the evolution of MechTech, and we learn a bit more about their plans to make the world into all of these bionic super people. And this leads into a part of the story where we learn a bit more about Jackson Bryce's life, and this part of the story reminds me a lot of the $6 Million Man and Steve Austin. So I really see where he put some references here as related to some parts that remind me of Al Simmons and Spawn, but a lot of this reminds me a lot of Steve Austin and the $6 Million Man. So I can see where there's some things as related to the Bionic Super Agent program and things as related to Jackson Bryce's origin as Agent Solo, and the story builds up very nicely and continues to move the story further forward and shows us how all of these threats merge together as related to the storylines under City Under Siege and a overall possible world that's going to be in crisis as related to General Hazard and his longtime plans. And Raymond Leonard here shows some really good skills as related to the art, and Art Belfeld shows some really good skills as related to the storytelling and the story arc of Agent Solo number 3. This is a great build up as to the storyline, and we're setting up higher stakes with each issue, and that's a hallmark of really good comic storytelling, is setting up even higher stakes. As you're paying off certain plot points, you're further moving the story forward and further letting us get to know these characters. And the more I get to know your Jackson Bryce, aka Agent Solo, the more I want to know more about him. And that's the thing that gets me motivated to keep picking up more issues as related to the next Kickstarter. Now, I don't want to give away too much of this comic because Raymond Leonard and many of the people who work with him did a great job on this book. And I want to see more people go out here and pick up this book. So I don't want to give away the entire book, but this one ends on a great cliffhanger, and you definitely want to go out here in August 2022 and pick up Agent Solo number 4 to continue the storyline as related to the City Under Siege. And you will not definitely be disappointed by that 4th issue, because I wasn't disappointed by this 3rd issue. And this 3rd issue had me wanting to see more of Agent Solo in action, and I'm loving the way this storyline is coming together. So this is a comic I definitely recommend you pick up, and this is a comic that I definitely recommend more readers go out here and get. And I just wish Raymond Leonard had a way to go out here and get more comics to people outside of these Kickstarters. He really needs a on-demand service like an Indie Planet to be able to get the back issues to people, or his own website. That's something I would recommend he go out here and do, because these back issues are they would be a gold mine as I see it. It would be a great way to get people to keep buying books all throughout the year. And you wouldn't just have to just pick them up at the Kickstarter. You could just continue shipping them to readers or having a service do it, like an Amazon, like I have with the SJS Direct Imprint. That's the other thing I would recommend Raymond go out here and do, because people, if these comics are so great, I want to see him be able to reach more readers and be able to reach them all throughout the year. But this third issue does a great job of continuing the story of the first two issues, and I'm definitely coming back for that fourth issue in August 2022 when Raymond decides to launch that issue on Kickstarter. I'm definitely going to put in a pledge for that fourth issue and continue supporting this absolutely fantastic comic by one of the most passionate people I have seen in the comic book business, a guy who puts so much love and heart on every page that I just have to go out here and support him, because he just, again, puts that love on the page of the comic, and you can feel that heart on every page of this absolutely, again, fantastic third issue. Now, my first comic, Easting No Good Deed, is now available on Amazon.com in Kindle format, and you can pick up that comic for 99 cents. And my upcoming comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, the artist Antonio Balderi has finished the 29th page, so there's only 3 more pages and a cover to go, and I will be launching that Kickstarter as soon as I get those final pages. And this art is almost, again, 90 some odd % complete, so this book is coming to the market sooner rather than later. And if you want to pick up some of my other prose stories on the SJS Direct Imprint, featuring action-packed African-American fantasy fiction, like the ISIS series, the Easting series, the John Haynes series, and books in the Spinsterella trilogy, and books like the vampire novel Eternal Night, you can find all of those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find those books on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And if you want to see me do more comic review videos of great independent comics like Raymond Leonard's Agent Solo, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the link in the description box, so I can have the funds to continue supporting great comics like Raymond Leonard's Agent Solo. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and e-readers, Easting Blast from the Past. Hell's aspiring angel takes on her demonic doppelganger in this action-packed, time-traveling Easting series adventure. Get Easting Blast from the Past with a bonus Easting comic book, No Good Deed, in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere.